Copy that. We have a visual. Grand Theft Auto heading at speed through Chernobyl docks.
DMA Design, formerly Acme Software, entered the PC development racket in 1998. It was founded by computer club buddies Dave Jones, Russell Kay, Steve Hammond, and Mike Daly in Dundee, Scotland. DMA quickly signed with Liverpool-based publisher Psygnosis that was trafficking mostly on the Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, and Commodore 64. DMA originally meant direct memory access, when a system accesses memory independently of the CPU. Dave Jones was asked to explain the acronym so many times, he eventually told reporters it didn't mean anything. DMA's first game as a company was based off a side-scrolling shooter pet project by Jones, first called CopperCon 1, then Draconia, and finally Menace. They followed this with a PC port of the popular Ballistics and another shooter called Blood Money. Tony Crowther and Mike Daly were working on animations for DMA's next game, Walker, so they created scores of little people to squash to test system performance. Russell Kay commented, "There's a game in that," and Lemmings was born. Named after small rodents known for accidental suicides while migrating, it was DMA's first hit. Psygnosis was bought by Sony in 1993, the same year Walker finally launched, followed by a tactical FPS called Hired Guns. DMA, now a known entity thanks to Lemmings and its sequels, was approached by Nintendo. DMA then produced Unirally, known in the US as Uniracers, for the Super Nintendo, and were brought in on the early development of a new console codenamed Project Reality that would ultimately become the Nintendo 64. While the team filled the hours with incomplete projects like Gore and Shadow of the Beast, they kept searching for the next big idea. DMA then began development of Body Harvest for the N64, a free-roaming action game that allowed you to take control of dozens of vehicles. Nintendo ultimately decided against publishing the game due to its violence, but it was picked up by Gremlin Graphics and released in October of 1998. That same year, DMA released another N64 game using the same engine, but with completely different aesthetics. Space Station Silicon Valley swapped out the planes and vehicles of Body Harvest for cute animals with different properties to create an interesting, almost puzzle-like experience. The game is still known as a cult hit, but DMA had grown tired of the console market, where edgy subject matter was still taboo. The studio decided to turn its attention toward the PC. Unrestricted and unfettered, it ditched the spacemen and aliens of Body Harvest for a thug and criminals, changed the 3D camera to a top-down view, and called it Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto was released on the PC in Europe in October of 1997. Published by BMG Interactive, the action-adventure was one big open world, a sandbox metropolis. Free-roaming environments like it had been around for more than a decade. Space sims and racing games had world maps to explore, leading to action roamers like Dragon Quest, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and Super Mario 64. But being the bad guy was a different quest altogether. The main objective in GTA was to be bad. The more chaos and destruction you caused, the better. It stood in direct opposition to 95% of video games at the time. Players could choose between 8 characters: Travis, Katie, Nikki, Divine, Bubba, Troy, Kivlov, or Ulrika. The alternate personalities only changed minor details, as each of them wore the same yellow shirt. Custom names could also be typed in, and some of them triggered specific cheats. The carnage took place across 3 locales: Liberty City, Vice City, and San Andreas. These maps were crude homages to New York, Miami, and San Francisco, respectively. 7 radio stations, along with emergency vehicle chatter, could be heard when inside a car. Players could also remove the game disc and play a random track from their own CD instead. The missions asked players to reach specific locations, but how they got there, what car they took, and what weapon they chose was often open to interpretation. Some activities led to point multipliers, which were hard to keep going as the player could potentially drop dead with one shot. When the player was arrested, their multiplier was halved. Being wasted by cops or criminals cost a life, and losing too many of those ended the game altogether. It didn't take long for Grand Theft Auto to cook up some controversy, but this turned out to be completely intentional. Sensing politicians would stand against the game's encouragement towards social violence, BMG Interactive hired publicist Max Clifford to point out GTA's worst parts in the papers. The tactic worked. Soon other countries and other platforms wanted in on the action. DMA's neighbor, Visual Sciences, brought GTA to the PS1 in December, and the series arrived in the US in 1998. A year later, GTA ran wild on the Game Boy Color. Despite Nintendo removing the swearing and gore, the entire game ran on the handheld. Sega Saturn and Nintendo 64 versions were also started, but never completed.
Listen, right, we're looking for a lad who can do his stuff.
Things have been getting out of hand, and we need you to mend a few broken pipes.
While keeping its engine relatively untouched, DMA made more missions for the masses in 1999. Instead of painting the same towns red, the series moved across the pond to a real city with a real name, London. 2 mission packs were released within months of each other.
Just a little bit pleased with yourself, ain't ya? And rightly so, rightly so.
1969 was available for the PC and the PlayStation, with both versions requiring the original game disc. 1961 was freeware, limiting its release to the PC, and required the first London pack to run. Both games came with new buildings to avoid, cars to steal, and a grand total of over 50 dirty deeds to do for the criminal underworld. The dialogue was also changed to reflect the new groovy time and place.
Remember, I'm the monkey and you're the cheese grater, so no messing around.
The 2 London mission packs took place in another era than the original GTA, but as they all shared the same engine, most fans considered them in the same timeline. When GTA's official sequel hit the streets the same year, it was a little more ambiguous about where and when it took place. The game's manual suggested its events occurred 3 weeks into the future, where documents from the official website were dated 2013. The entire game took place in one spot, the elusive Anywhere City, and the story moved through 3 districts: downtown, residential, and industrial. There was a lot that felt unfamiliar about GTA 2, but the gameplay was still all about points, and the player had to get their hands dirty to get them.
Big backup on south side of the city with a truck turned over near City Hall and all kinds of chaos down there. The word on the street says, if you don't have to travel, then stay home. And listen with me, Sammy Starrock.
Sammy Starrock comes from the School of Hard Knocks.
This is the downtown where they're coming after this track, an exclusive on Rockstar, recording session last week at our very own Mary Hale's studio. Take it away.
Instead of a gang of characters or a custom text field, GTA 2 starred one specific protagonist, the every gangster Claude Speed. An 8-minute live-action short film was shot to promote the game and was recut for the opening sequence. Despite GTA 2 taking place in a nearly unnamed city, the footage was clearly shot in New York. UK actor Scott Maslin starred in the short, and his character Claude was curiously killed in the closing scene.
Yo, check this out. My rhymes is faggot.
Job complete!
Players went from doing odd jobs for psychopaths to squaring off against 8 territorial gangs: Zaibatsu Corp, Loonies, Yakuza, Scientists, Rednecks, Hare Krishnas, Utes, and the Russian Mafia. They each had their own part of town, custom car, and respect meter. Taking the fight to a gang's sworn enemy or helping out with a mission or two earned you respect in their ranks, and the opposite meant that they would open fire whenever you crossed their turf. In the first game, players had to evade the boys in blue, but GTA 2 deployed special agents and the army when the player got in enough trouble. Missions were split into 3 difficulties: green, yellow, and red. The harder missions required more respect, but granted a bigger payout. Unlocking each area also opened bonus areas, where Claude could destroy ice cream vans or race against the clock while plowing through the unlucky population. Killing frenzies, service jobs, collecting GTA 2 tokens, and boosting Wang cars rounded out the game's activities. GTA 1 only saved the player's progress when a city was completed, but in GTA 2, players could buy their salvation at a local church for 50 grand. GTA 2 had 4 more radio stations than the first Grand Theft Auto, with the contemporary rock and pop head radio returning. Over 40 songs could be heard across the 11 total stations, along with radio chatter when in an emergency vehicle like a fire truck or cop car. Players could switch between stations and DJs rattled off each tune and took callers. GTA 2, like GTA 1, also had multiplayer, but due to lag, complicated login hurdles, and a lack of promotion, most players completely skipped over the feature.
Hi, this is Jill Tasker, and we have your 10 o'clock news roundup.
Well, here it is.
This news just in of trouble at the RV trailer park. We'll have details right after this.
These drivers must die!
Ports for Grand Theft Auto 2 were available much faster than for its predecessor. GTA journeyed to the original PlayStation just a month later, the Dreamcast the following April, and the Game Boy Color again in November. The PC version could be played in two modes, noon and dusk. To focus on the time of day that best portrayed their given console, Sony's machine could only show GTA 2 at noon, while Sega's version took place exclusively at dusk. On any console, Grand Theft Auto 2 looked superior to the original. Criminals and law enforcement engaged each other without the player's involvement, and pedestrians could be spotted riding taxis and buses across town. The new engine also utilized an early form of 3D technology to enable smoother dynamic camera zooming and sprite rotation, as well as environmental lighting from streetlights, headlights, explosions, and emergency vehicles. Players couldn't help but wonder what the game would look like if the camera could just follow Claude from street level, instead of hovering over him like a hawk. At the same time, British developer Criterion Games was perfecting a 3D engine called Renderware that would change Grand Theft Auto and open-world action forever.
There's no news today because Tsunami FM has a new computer and everyone likes to play games.
In episode 2 of our Grand Theft Auto Retrospective, we return to a Liberty City unlike anything fans had ever seen. Claude comes back to take down each street gang one by one, and Tommy Vercetti gives us a second snort of fun in the sun.